Welcome on to another edition of Matchbook's Champions League podcast. Matchday 4 is upon us. Delighted to be joined on Monday morning by the Guardian's Jonathan Wilson. Good morning, Jonathan. How are you?
Morning. How you doing?
Very good, thanks. And Tom Love is back on board. Mark O'Hare is still on paternal duty. Tom, good couple of days at Bradford. That winning the best bet, the weekend podcast. Both teams to score. Lovely winner.
Yeah, delighted with that. I mean, I was at the game, and I'm not sure the Forest Green goal should have been given, but we'll take it. We'll take the BTTS and the profit and run.
Absolutely. Luckily enough, no VAR at League 2 games yet. Let's take a look at what we have for Matchday 3. Obviously, Mark isn't here, but Mark contributed to a lot of these winners. Jonathan as well, of course. Liverpool minus a quarter of a goal at 1.99. Atletico, Liverpool, both teams to score. That was Jonathan. That was your bet. That got about 17 minutes, 16 minutes.
Oh, easy winner quick. There. Yeah. Sit back and enjoy that.
Indeed. Absolutely. Atalanta, we got a bit of a kind of a win there, but not much. Atalanta United over 3 was a win as well. Dynamo Kyiv plus 1.5. Jonathan, great show as well. We'll cover Dynamo later on in the show as well, and Juventus minus a quarter. Before we get into today's show and the running order that we have, I want to talk about Safer Gambling Week. It runs from the 1st to the 7th of November. If you check out safergamblinguk.org for further details, you'll find some helpful tools there to control your gambling and to help you gamble more safely. And I suppose we reiterate this every year. Only spend what you can afford. Set your limits for time and money. And remember, gambling shouldn't interfere with your personal relationships. It's way more important to have relationships with your friends and family. So yeah, it's all for fun. That's what we do these podcasts. So please do gamble responsibly at all times. First game I want to talk about, Liverpool against Atletico. Good game in the first leg here. Well, it's not the first leg, but Matchday 3. Liverpool 1.7 at home, 5.7. You can back Atletico. The draw available at 4.1. Atletico Madrid getting a 3/4 of a goal start on the Asian handicap at 2.06 and 2.75 is the total. Jonathan, you went both teams to score last week or even a couple of weeks ago. Same bet again this week.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of considered Liverpool minus 0.75. I think Liverpool should win it, but I also like the look of Liverpool to win and both teams to score. If you want something a bit longer, but watching that Brighton game on Saturday, I think you see the issue Liverpool still have. I know they're unbeaten since April. I know they're obviously playing brilliantly, but they do have issues in midfield, particularly when Fabinho's not there. I know Jordan Henderson can fill in. I know 2 seasons ago they had that sort of, I think it was about a 6-week run of when Fabinho was out and Henderson was brilliant at the back of midfield. So it's not that he can't do it, but I just think Fabinho is a more natural fit. And so for all that they've been playing really well this season, I think there are defensive issues there. I think we saw that the last Champions League match day. Saw it against Brighton on Saturday, saw it against Brentford. Even those home games in the league against City and Chelsea, although they drew both those games, I think you did see that they're not quite as defensively secure as, say, City and Chelsea. So that's my one concern here. I still think Liverpool should win it. I mean, Atletico as well, after that 3-2 defeat 2 weeks ago, 2-2 draws in a row. Yeah, they did win 3-0 this weekend. So against Betis, if you can read anything into that. So I don't think Atletico are that secure at the back either. So that's why after a lot of vacillation, I've ended up sort of thinking, the safe bet is both teams to score. But I am quite tempted by, 3.4 Liverpool to win and both teams to score?
It's a big price. And Tom Love, what are you making of this one? You fancy Liverpool to get the win?
Yeah, Jonathan mentioned one of the bets there that I'm quite keen on, and it's minus 0.75 for Liverpool, around 1.85. Basically, even 1.7 about Liverpool just straight up win did appeal, but they're scoring for fun at the moment, and you can't really take your eyes off it. They've notched 2 or more goals in 14 of 15 games this season, and 3 or more in 10 of 15. So they've been exceptional going forward. They've got all the front 4 fit and available. And Jonathan touched on it there about Atleti defensively. Then they've not been, performing at the levels that they have been in previous years under Simeone. I think they've failed to keep a clean sheet in every away game this season, and quite often against 10 men too, which is interesting. And I just think that even though they've got the names back at the back, they're just not performing to the levels that they were a while ago, and I just think it's one of these games where it's hard to see Liverpool not scoring a couple of goals. And can I see Atletico Madrid scoring 2 or more goals here without a suspended Antoine Griezmann? Probably not. And they're also missing Thomas Lemar and Marcus Llorente too. So, yeah, I think Liverpool at home in the Champions League are always a team that I want to get on side. And I don't think La Liga is anywhere near the level of the Premier League in terms of quality this season. So, yeah, I think if Liverpool can do it in their own backyard, and they weren't brilliant in that game, I don't think, and they still managed to get the win. They should be able to do it at Anfield, with them just scoring for fun at the minute. I'd be more than happy to take them minus 0.75 at 1.85.
Yeah, I suppose look, two angles there. So, like Tom said, Liverpool minus 0.5/1.0 is currently 1.86, and both teams scored. John is actually 1.84. It was a bit shorter earlier this morning. So I think there's two ways in there, potentially good angles. But I know in the next game you guys have differing opinions. So let's take the two bets here. We won't have a bet in the next game, but let's talk about that game. And it is a worthwhile game to be discussing. Obviously, Atalanta versus Manchester United. Tuesday night game in Bergamo. And Tom, I'll come to you here first for this one, but let's take a look at the betting as we have it currently. Atalanta 2.82, Manchester United 2.5, the draw available at 3.95. The draw no bet market is the main Asian line at the moment. That'll appear on site at matchbook.com at 0.0. Obviously, United are slight favourite there, 1.85, and 3.25 is the total. And Tom, Manchester United, exceptionally hard team to get a read on. Ole changed it up at the weekend with that back three, but you don't think it's going to make any difference here? You think that Atalanta will get on the score sheet and more than once?
Yeah, the bet that I like here, Atalanta to score over 1.5 team goals at 1.99 around even money. I think that's fair enough. I wouldn't really want to back Atalanta to win this game because I don't really rate them defensively. We saw that in the second half at Old Trafford. They just retreated, quite unlike them really. They're usually a much more proactive side, but I think United at home, they always tend to turn it on in the second half in this competition. We saw that against Villarreal as well. But yeah, I'm not reading that much into that game against Spurs. Ultimately, Spurs did win the XG battle in that game, which is bizarre because I thought, given the eye test, I thought Spurs were dreadful in that game. But United just picked them off on the counter. But yeah, I'm keen on Atalanta here because they've scored 2 or more goals in 7 of the last 9 games. So this bet's copped in 7 of the last 9. And you've got a player in Josip Ilicic coming into great form, linking up really well with Zapata at the weekend against Lazio. They were both very good in that game. But that game kind of showed up what they're all about. Really decent going forward, but defensively, they conceded 2 goals again. So I wouldn't want to side with them to win the game, but I do think that they can score 2 goals here. Still far from convinced about United at the back, and I mentioned it on the podcast the other day. So about the balance in that United side, it's just not there. I appreciate the back three made a bit of a difference, but this is a real step up in quality. I think Atalanta are going to give them a really, really good game here, and yeah, I like the look of them to score 2 or more around even money.
Yeah, they'll appear on site as home team goals. 1.5 is the line, as Tom said, just nearly even money at 1.99. Jonathan, I think you're on the other side of the fence here with United. You fancy them to get a result?
Well, I mean, I'm very torn by this because the problem is I have no idea what Saturday told us because Tottenham are hopeless.
That bad, yeah.
So it's sort of a combination of that game and what we saw last season that I think the one quality Solskjaer has shown as a manager is when he feels he can sit deep and frustrate the opposition. So if you look at the 6 games they played in the league last season against Chelsea, City, and Liverpool. So not the other 3 members of the top 4 as it turned out last season, but probably the 3 best other teams in the Premier League. They kept 5 clean sheets in those games. And I think the problem this season has been signing Ronaldo has meant they haven't been able to play in that way in big games. So I think playing that back 3 plus the 2 holding midfielders, it's a good solid block. It naturally, I think, stops the way Atalanta want to attack because you're matching up wing back against wing back. And if they're trying to funnel it through that number 10, you've got 2 players there. So if United try and do anything other than defend, they could be ripped apart. But I think they have shown that they can just sit in, and I don't see in this game why they would do anything else. It felt on Saturday as if it was sort of a reset for Solskjaer, and I don't think you can do this long term. I don't think you can be a United manager playing for clean sheets when you've got Greenwood and Rashford and Sancho and Pogba on the bench. But for this brief period, this run of 3 games, which Solskjaer identified after the 5-0 defeat, that he sort of felt were the key, I think he'll be happy enough to try and frustrate the opposition. And I just think what we saw last season, there might therefore be value in backing them to do that. The fact they've got the 2 wins in Champions League already, they don't need to win this game. A draw is a good result for them in terms of progressing. So that's why I just sort of think that there might be a bit of value in backing under 3 goals in the game. I mean, I'm even half tempted. I mean, this is going wild, which, as you know, is not my natural sort of mood. But backing United to win to 0, which I think is around about 9-2, I wouldn't mind a little bit on that. So I'll go for the safer option of under 3 goals in the game. Now that it could easily be 4-3. I don't really know what I'm talking about here, but based on what we saw on Saturday and last season, I think that there might be value in United actually being able to defend, which they haven't been able to do so far this season.
Well, you know what? Going off the first couple of podcasts, you know what you're talking about because we're making money by following your tips. But I will say that they are a hard team to get a read on, to be fair. And you can kind of make your own point. Right? Look, if it's a 2-0 Atalanta win and we caught both of those, but obviously we can't lock in a play there because they're differing views. But if you're watching or listening to us today, you might have your own opinions, and one of the guys might have sent you over the edge. But a good game nonetheless in Bergamo, it should be. All right, next game we're going to look at is Jonathan's game of choice, Dinamo Kyiv against Barcelona. We touched on already, Jonathan's been in great form with Dinamo throughout the tournament. He's got a good read in his team. 5.5, you can back them at home. Barcelona, 1.69. The draw available just turned to 1.7, actually. Barca, 4.0. You can back the draw. Dinamo Kyiv getting a 3/4 goal start on the Asian handicap at 2.0. You can also back them plus a full goal at 1.74, and 2.75 is the total. And Jonathan, obviously, look, this has been going on for a couple of weeks. Kyiv have a lot of injuries up top, especially. Didn't really kind of do such a bad job at the new camp. And then we look at Barcelona. Koeman's out the door. Still old problems at the weekend. That 1-1 draw against Alaba is not good.
Yeah, not impressive in that game. I think it's the club totally in crisis. And it's one of those situations, I think, where if they were a smaller club, say they were, I don't know, Valencia or something, and they had that squad, they'd be okay. They'd be fine. But they're not. They're Barcelona. And so it feels like this is not what they should be. So I think they repeatedly overreach. They haven't had that immediate sort of sense of relief and release of Koeman going and suddenly everything's fine. And I think fundamentally the players aren't good enough to do that. I think the problems are so deep-rooted that it's going to take a long time to solve that. Yeah. Then on the flip side, I think Dynamo Kyiv, it's very hard with teams in leagues like Ukraine to work out how good they are. So, they won twice in the league, once in the cup since the 1-goal defeat in the Nou Camp 2 weeks ago. I mean, that doesn't tell us anything really, apart from they're doing okay. The injuries are a problem for them. But I do think Bielski against Busquets, that sort of the number 10, he's quite a dynamic player in that number 10 role against Busquets. I can see him giving Busquets a bit of a chasing if his shape isn't right for Barca. I don't see how the shape is suddenly going to get right, because to be honest, it hasn't been right for years in Europe. You think they only lost by 1 in the Camp Nou. Going to Kiev, it'll be a difficult atmosphere for Barcelona. The weather being November is going to be uncomfortable for Barcelona. It's not an environment they're going to walk into and think, oh, this is great. It's going to be a miserable night for them, even if it goes well. So, I mean, maybe that sort of backs to the wall will inspire them, but this isn't a side that looks to me like it's ready to be inspired. And the fact that Dynamo are 5.5 to win looks very long. So that's why, I think backing them with a 3/4 of a goal start, was it evens? Did you say there?
Yeah, evens 2.0.
So that still looks to me pretty good to have that 3/4 of a goal start.
Would I even be able to tempt you on the full 1 in the sense that you get your money back if Barcelona lose by 1, and that's 1.74?
Yeah. I mean, it's either or of those, to be honest. I'm just going for the slightly more adventurous option.
Tom Love, I think you're in agreement on this one. And obviously, look, Jonathan touched on there. And even that Barcelona central defence, like if you give me Eric Garcia and Longley any day of the week, there's surely a goal here in Kyiv somewhere.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Barca, I mean, you mentioned the Kyiv injuries there, but Barca, I mean, Aguero went off with a heart problem, which was a bit disconcerting at the weekend. Dembele, Pedri, Ansu Fati, Braithwaite might all be missing here. And yeah, Araujo, who's been decent this season, to be fair to him, and Piqué, both absent too. So yeah, I can completely see where Jonathan's coming from with getting Kyiv on side here. I'd be a little bit more conservative. I'm a bit like Mark in that way and take the +1 on the Asian handicap. But yeah, I think if you're getting them on side with a start, you're going to be in a decent position. Because I thought they were decent, actually, Kyiv in Barcelona, just how they kind of stifled them. And Barca have been a bit odd in the fact that I think they're the team with the most crosses in La Liga this season, which I'm not sure if that's a Koeman tactic. It probably is. But they're not playing how they usually tend to play. So, yeah, I think that the value is definitely with Kyiv here. The other player that I did have down was under 2.75 goals, around 1.89, because we saw in that reverse meeting that Kyiv can keep it quite tight, and Barca just, they're not clicking up front, are they? Let's be honest. I mean, if you're not beating a really poor Alaves side, he's kind of saying everything. So, yeah, two players that I like there. I like the unders, but I'm more than happy to go with Kyiv with a start too.
Yeah, look, Barcelona 1.7 in Kyiv. I wouldn't bet that with someone else's money. Honestly, it's just way too short. All right, so look, Kyiv plus a goal, plus a full goal, plus 1.0, 1.74. That's the chosen play there. Tom, your game of choice is Sevilla against Lille. So I'll start with you here for this one. But let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back Sevilla at 1.67, Lille at 6.4. The draw available at 3.8. Lille getting a 3/4 goal start on the Asian handicap at 2.04, and a low enough total, which is not that surprising, obviously, for Sevilla game at 2.25, shaded slightly towards the over at 1.92. And Tom, look, 3 games for Sevilla, 3 draws. Can they break their duck this weekend?
Yeah, I think that they can. I just think that Sevilla at home, especially, have been excellent for years now domestically and in Europe, whether it be Europa League or Champions League, always proving very difficult to play against. I watched that game against Salzburg, the other game, which was a bizarre fixture. I can't believe it ended 1-1. I think there was 4 penalties given in that game. It was just one of them where Sevilla completely lost control. They lost their heads a little bit too. But I think Lille are a much more pragmatic side compared to Salzburg, who are quite adventurous in their approach. And I think that'll suit Sevilla. I think it means that they could have control of this game. And they've got Youssef En-Nesyri back in the fold now after a layoff. He's been out for a few weeks. He's back now, played in the win over Osasuna. That was a good result against an Osasuna side who'd won every away game. Up till then, standard 2-0 Sevilla home win. And it's something that they've just done time and time again. They've won 5 and drawn 1 of the 6 games at the Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan, scoring 16 goals in the process. So they're a team that are always well set up defensively, but they're scoring goals now, and they've got plenty of options in Ocampos. Even Rafa Mir off the bench, who was excellent for Huesca last season. En-Nesyri, as I mentioned, is back. We've got plenty of... Even Papu Gomez might be back in the fold here, which will be a huge boost. He's a terrific player. But yeah, just looking at the flip side of it with Lille, they've been really underwhelming this season. I've watched a lot of Ligue 1 and they've regressed massively since Christophe Galtier left for Nice. And it kind of goes to show just how good and influential Galtier was. And they've been missing Sven Botman, who was their best player for me last season. And defensively, they've looked pretty suspect. They've won just 4 of 15 games in all competitions. And 3 of those wins were against sides with 10 men. They've won just once away, which is at Strasbourg, who had a pretty underwhelming start to the season. And yeah, the manager in Gourvenec is not anywhere near the standard of a Lopetegui. And Sevilla, such a well-coached side, I think that they're going to get a win here. I think it could be a 2-0, or 2-0, 3-0. I think that Lille will probably find it quite difficult to score. And yeah, really good home side against a team lacking confidence on the road. So Sevilla around 1.66 are there. We can boost that to around 1.88 if you take them minus 0.75, and that's my angle in for this one.
Yeah, Sevilla in a low-scoring win. Bar that Levante game a couple of weeks ago, which felt like the Twilight Zone with that 8-goal total, but that's generally how it goes at home with Sevilla. Jonathan, you're kind of fancying a similar theme here with Lopetegui's side.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are a team who, against a certain type of opponent, can lose control, but Lille aren't that type of opponent. I mean, Lille have scored, 9 in the last 10 games, and 7 of those have come from Jonathan David. So, you shut him down, you shut them down, and I think Sevilla will be able to do that. And so, I'm quite happy sort of pushing the bat a bit further. Because, I mean, I guess the game here is how do you get more value than the 1.66?
Yeah.
So I think them to win to 0, apart from that Salzburg game, 2 clean sheets so far in the Champions League, 6 clean sheets this season. So them to win to 0's around about 2.5, 2.54, something like that. So I'm quite happy to take that on.
Yeah, a pair of selection there. So Sevilla minus 3/4 goal at 1.89 currently is Tom's selection, and Jonathan's there is Sevilla to win to 0 at 2.54. So those 2 selections plus Kyiv plus 1 at 1.74, and a couple of selections the Liverpool game as well. Liverpool minus 3/4 goal for Tom, and both teams to score for Jonathan. And you check out insights.matchbook.com for a full recap of those selections about 2 hours post recording on Monday afternoon. Any other business section? Tom, I'll get to you here for this one. Juventus is your selection here against Zenit, and you like them to win under 3.5 goals, 2.34.
Yeah, I think that's quite a generous price, to be honest. So I think that Juventus have not been liked by the market all season, and I can see why. Just because they started the season in pretty poor form, but he has picked up overall under Allegri. I think he has instilled some more defensive discipline.
Can I ask though, Tom, like playing devil's advocate, the last 2 games, Sassuolo and Verona, 2 losses. So this is probably why you're getting a good price here.
Yeah, absolutely. But I watched that game against Sassuolo, and it was a last-minute strike. They have ultimately won the XG battle in 5 of the last 6 games, including them 2 losses. So, and they're coming up against a really an informed Verona side. So I think it might even work in their favour a bit, because Allegri is a very demanding manager, isn't he? And I think that he's going to have them really up for this, even though they don't necessarily have to win. They are on 9 points. Ultimately, they're top in a group that includes Chelsea, who obviously won this competition last season. So, yeah, I think that they're a much better side on the continent, and they went off around 2.5 in Russia, which was a big old price. They did drift in that market, but I'm not sure you'll get that drift this time round with them being at home. So, yeah, I think rather than backing them on a -1 Asian handicap here, I think the 1-0 is a big runner. So I'm more than happy to chance a bigger price here at 2.34 and take them to win in under 3.5 goals. Because even though Zenit have picked up domestically, I think that there's just a big chasm in terms of quality between Serie A and a Russian Premier League that has kind of dipped. I think Mark mentioned it's around the levels of the Scottish League. So, I think Juve are a fair price, but I'll look at them maybe win to 0, but getting the under 3.5 goals on side just means that if Zenit do score, you still have that 2-1, which I always like to get on side because it is one of the favourites in the correct score market. So, Juventus got pretty much fully fit squad by Discilio. So, yeah, they should have enough to get by against the Zenit side that I don't think are up to much.
Yeah, not a bad angle. 2.34, very backable price as well. Jonathan Wilson, Wednesday night, Manchester City play host to Club Brugge. There's not going to be too many people back in this one because everyone is going to think that City are going to blow them away. But do you think Brugge can give them a game? Plus 2.5 is the angle here.
Yeah, and that's why I think there's probably some value here. That City are a funny team this season. That they are capable of blowing teams away. So this could be, it could be 6-0. That could happen.
Yeah.
But there have been games this season. Basically, if City don't score in the first half hour, they can find it really difficult. So I think there's only been 2 games they've won this season where they haven't scored in the first half hour, which was the away game against Leicester and the away game against Chelsea. That Chelsea game, they were well on top from the start. It was a freakish thing that they didn't score for that long. But we've seen Southampton frustrate them at home. We saw Crystal Palace frustrate them, or beat them at home. We saw Leicester frustrate them in the Community Shield. So that's, the question always comes down to the sort of the instinctive question when City have failed to beat a team is, do they need a striker? And you've seen Guardiola's getting niggled by that question. It started to annoy him, which I do understand. And I think fundamentally they don't need a striker. I think the football they played, for instance, away in Bruges, wouldn't be possible with a striker. You need that fluidity. But there is a flip side to that, which is if you're on top, or even if you're not on top, you don't have that option of somebody just lump it in the box and see what they can produce. So I know, you look at Lukaku at Chelsea, that hasn't quite worked yet. They look better without him. But at the same time, you sort of think, if things aren't going quite right, you've got him there. You do have that easy option of the ball in the box. He is somebody who can just get something from nowhere. And City don't really have that. So I don't think City are going to lose the game. I thought they were a little bit fortunate to win as easily as they did away to Club Brugge. Club Brugge, there's absolutely no reason why they shouldn't take third in the group and qualify for the Europa League, which for them to finish ahead of Leipzig, I think would be a great achievement. So I think there's every incentive for them to play this hard. So to get them with a 2.5 start at slightly worse than evens, around about 1.92, seems to me a decent price. I mean, really, you're backing City to have one of their slightly off days, but those do happen every sort of 3 or 4 weeks, and you saw it on Saturday. So that seems worthwhile.
Yeah, and the flip side is, look, they're 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go. They're knocking it above. There's no incentive for them to go and get a third either. So, don't mind that angle. All right, a lot of good looks there. Probably quieter slate this week, but that's okay too. Less is more sometimes. Match day 4 best bets. Tom Love, come to you first. Of all of those ones, what was your top selection?
Yeah, it's the Sevilla bet that we just touched on, -3/4 of a goal. I just think out of every team in La Liga, the team I'm most comfortable backing at home is Sevilla, even more so than a Real Madrid or a Barcelona or Atlético. I just think their record speaks for itself. And I've been really, really underwhelmed with Lille this season. Jallo's a big downgrade on Botman at the back. And I just think that they're going to get the job done. And I could see maybe a 2-0, 3-0 job. So, Sevilla -3/4, and we'll be making profit if they win the game.
Good stuff. Yeah, like that angle. Jonathan Wilson, your best bet?
Well, I'm very tempted by 3 of the longer things I've suggested this week. So I like the idea of United to win to 0, which I know is a big price. I like the idea of Liverpool to win and both teams to score. I like the idea of Sevilla to win to 0. But I guess it's Mark's influence over me over the previous sort of 2 months of this season. I'm going to go for something a lot safer and go for both teams to score at Anfield in the Liverpool Atletico game.
Yeah, 1.84 currently. He has that effect, John. He does rub off in a lot of us in that sense. We look for the stars, but he's way more pragmatic. Way more pragmatic. It's a long-term game. My thanks to Jonathan. My thanks to Tom. A lot of fun again this week. We'll be back in the next couple of weeks, of course, for Matchday at 5. Don't forget, if you're enjoying the content, please leave us a preferential review on your preferred podcast app. But if you're watching us on YouTube, click the thumbs up button and also click the subscribe button when you'll be notified when we go live. Until the next time, a Matchday 5. Goodbye for now.